So you got to just realize that just because you're a lawyer and it's a law firm doesn't mean that the business side has to be run by lawyers who, in many cases, are not good business people and have other things to do.
Welcome to episode 350 of the Game Changing Attorney Podcast. 5 years ago, we launched this podcast with one goal: to help law firm owners think bigger and play a bigger game. Today, we're celebrating that journey with 5 stories of big bets, bold moves, and next-level growth.
The non-lawyers that work for us, they have one job, and that's what they do every day.
I'm Michael Mogul, founder and CEO of Crisp, the nation's #1 law firm growth company. I've built my business through practice, not theory. Crisp started with just $500 to my name and has grown to over 8 figures in revenue over the last few years, earning a spot on the Inc. 500 list of the fastest growing private companies in America. Our approach has been to take everything we've learned about generating massive growth within our own organization and help the country's most ambitious and committed law firm owners do the same for theirs. In each episode of this podcast, I sit down with innovative market leaders from the legal industry and beyond to learn from those who thrive in the face of adversity, challenge the status quo, and define what it means to be a true game changer. These game changers didn't play by the rules, they rewrote them. Whether it's in law, business, sports, or in life, they demonstrated what's possible when you bet on yourself and go all in.
So when I get around you, I'm like a fucking lie detector. They get around me and they know what they're not doing. They start to judge themselves without me even saying a word and start realizing I'm not doing enough. And what that does in turn is it makes them very angry at me or whoever is working hard, because they know that you're working hard for everything you have and they just refuse to do that. So the only thing best to do is run their fucking mouths and talk shit about it.
That's coming up on the Game Changing Attorney Podcast. Before we begin today's episode, I want to remind you that we aren't beholden to any sponsors or run any ads on this podcast. This allows us to present all of our episodes raw and unfiltered. I'm not going to push any made-to-order meal services on you or try to save you any money on your car insurance. That being said, I have one small request. If you receive any value from this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. Pay the fee so we can keep this podcast free. When it comes to legal marketing and building an empire, few have done it bigger than John Morgan. He didn't just start a law firm, he created a brand that dominates. John has set the standard for how law firms scale, stand out, and win. But his success wasn't handed to him. It was built on bold decisions, relentless action, and an unwavering belief. During our conversation, I asked John to elaborate on what led to the origin of his firm.
When I was a young lawyer, I only wanted to do personal injury. That's all I've ever done. I got a job in a personal injury firm, and I was doing very well. I was really, really good at getting business. I lived in union halls and union dive bars, which is also one of my specialties. And I was bringing in lots and lots and lots of business. So at the 2.5-year point, they came to me to review me for the next year. And they gave me my review. And when they gave me my review, I was not happy. They were here and I was thinking there. And so what I would tell you all is these moments come to everybody and it's like a fork in the road. And all of us have these forks in the road. So that day they told me what they thought I was worth, and I told them what I thought I was worth. And then they also told me there was 3 guys in the firm that were ahead of me for partnership. And so I'm at the fork in the road. When you come to a fork in the road, you do 3 things. 1, take it, go straight. 2, go right, go somewhere else. Or 3, go left and start your own thing. And so that was a fork in the road moment for me. And when I got to that fork, at the end of the meeting, they said, "What do you think?" And I say, "Well," and I went right to my office. I called some people that I'd been thinking about it with, and within a week, I'd started my own law firm. And so I didn't go straight, I didn't go right, I went left. And when I came back a week later to resign, they asked me, they said, why Why is this happening? And I told him, I said, look, I told you what I thought I was worth. You told me what you thought I was worth. For me to stay makes me one of the greatest BS artists in the world. And by the way, if I got to wait to be a partner after these three guys, I'm just not going to wait. And so what I would say to everybody here, you may be at a fork in the road right now. You might be at a place that's a dead end. Because when I looked straight ahead at that firm, I didn't see opportunity. I saw a dead end. And so what I would tell everybody here today, and you know if it's dead end. We all know. Sometimes we don't want to admit it. But if it's dead end, you need to go left or you go to right. But if you go straight, you're going nowhere fast.
So how do you handle this in your firm? Because I imagine you've got some stars, some really high performers. I imagine they'd come to you in a similar situation. How do you approach that?
Well, I have some partners. There's two ways to handle people: partnership points or just money. And both work. The only people that I want to give partnership points to is some person who's going to continue to enlarge the pie, to make the pie bigger. But then you have performers. I give them benchmarks, and every time you hit a benchmark, you get paid. The one thing at Morgan & Morgan is there's no such thing as a discretionary bonus. You do what you do, and then you turn in your worksheet, and you get paid. There's no end of the year where I go, hey, by the way, here you go, Mike, because I don't think that works. And the firm can have a bad year, and you had a good year, and you don't get a good bonus. So all of our people, they know with certainty, and they get paid every single month. We don't wait to the end of the year to come in and go, hey, here's $100,000, here's $1 million. They can build that million in the year, and as the year goes on, their bonuses go up.
And in your book, Can't Teach Hungry, in the book you make a pretty clear case for the fact that hunger, this insatiable desire to win, it can't be taught, you're born with it. How do you evaluate somebody when you're either meeting with them, whether it's a lawyer or a member of your team? How can you tell if they've got it or not?
Now, one way I used to tell, I can't tell anymore. Whenever I meet somebody, I always ask what they did as a kid. When people used to tell me they were a paper boy, I knew I had a winner there. I knew that person had a seed from birth, because paper boys, those are some working sons of bitches. It's morning, every weekend, rain, sleet, snow. Or I'll hear that they did something. They had a lawn business, they sold grit, they did something early. Because I believe that we are born with certain things. And one of those things is drive. Warren Buffett was a paper boy. Oprah Winfrey was a paper girl. If I went through it, I could tell you, I meet people my age, I'll just say, like I was at Keeneland for the races a few weeks ago. I said, this one guy, I said, were you a paper boy? He goes, how'd you know? You know. It's like, black light, you can tell. But there's no secret, because I have hired people that I thought, this is it. This is the one. The look, the personality, the charisma. But sometimes these people are lazy, and they like to sit around in the morning and watch Sports Center and eat cereal. And you don't know. And look, everybody makes mistakes. Look at the draft choices in the NBA and the NFL and Major League Baseball. There's a lot of first rounders that bust. You only really know once you get in the trenches with them, watch them work day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And then those people emerge. And it becomes obvious.
Now, something that may not be obvious that you share with me is that even with 1,000 lawyers, you mentioned that today you have primarily non-lawyers running the firm. What was the thought behind that? I guess what kind of led to that decision?
Well, I had a dinner one time with the firm Simmons. They do asbestos work. And we had a dinner. They came to Orlando to meet me, but they had a whole team from the Simmons law firm, but very few of them were lawyers. They were people who ran the firm. And I was intrigued by that. I spent more time talking about their structure than about mesothelioma. And I said, you know what? All these law firms believe that we have to have a lawyer as the manager or the co-manager. And why is that? And so after that dinner, and as I've progressed, I would say that the top part of my team that runs my business are all non-lawyers. And as we move more and more in technology, I mean, I've got a lot of people, a lot of non-lawyers making seven-figure salaries that I've hired from Google and Shave Club and national advertising agencies, call centers. And so the people who actually run my firm, very few lawyers and mostly people with very specific skill sets. I don't know the intricacies of a call center, but Angie does. And Angie has 200 people in El Salvador answering the phone. She's got 600 people in Orlando answering the phone. And that's what she does. She teaches me. So you got to just realize that just because you're a lawyer and it's a law firm doesn't mean that the business side has to be run by lawyers who, in many cases, are not good business people and have other things to do. The people, the non-lawyers that work for us, they have one job, and that's what they do every day.
John Morgan's story is a perfect example of what happens when you bet on yourself and go all in. Speaking of trailblazers, our next guest, Jan Dils, took the legal advertising world by storm, challenging the status quo and redefining what it means to stand out in a crowded market, ultimately building the largest female-founded law firm in the country. Let's hear how Jan's relentless drive and innovative thinking turned her law firm into a powerhouse.
So back in, talking about 94 and early 95, the phone book rep came in and the back of the phone book was available, and I bought the back of the phone book. Had no way of paying for it. I couldn't even pay for the secretary that was out outside my door. But he came in, and I was like, "This is the way it needs to be." And because you can't, if no one knows you or has heard about you, and I just came out of law school, then how do they know what you do?
And I guess shortly after the phone book, I guess the other advertising starts to pick up. I imagine you start to gain some traction and start to see some success there. Did that kind of lead you to start to invest more and more in advertising?
It did. I started with the phone book. Of course, I came from a car dealership. So my dad was big on advertising. And so I was familiar with the traditional advertisers, the TV, radio, and newspaper. So when I started after the phone book, and then I moved in 97, I cut my first commercial. That's when I really realized the power of it.
And I guess a prevalent theme across your life is really not taking no for an answer. Today, I know you have that also like trademarked, and there's the jingle.
Jan Dils, attorney at law. She won't take no for an answer.
And I'd love to hear about the origin of the jingle, because I think that played a very important role in the growth of the firm.
The jingle that I have is not the original jingle. It's like the fifth jingle, by the way. I went through 4 jingles, and I just didn't like it. And it just wasn't me, and it was just hokey. And not that this isn't hokey, but this person that formulated this jingle sat down and talked to me and said, well, tell me about your life. And I would just went around and, we had a long conversation about how I got here, the perseverance coming through. My dad's a wonderful human being, but he motivated me without knowing he motivated me. So just applying to law school, saying, yeah, you'll never get in, and going back before that, many times where he would just say, you can't do that. And then that would just motivate me more. So when I was talking to the gentleman, that's how that came about.
I don't know what you thought about jingles in general, whether that would work or not. From what I recall, you were reluctant to even take that meeting. You did it as a favor.
I did. So the reason I did the jingle was a friend of mine went to school with him. It was a radio rep. He thought, hey, this would be a great idea. I'm like, I'm already getting a lot of flack from my peers about being on TV. Last thing I wanted to do was put a jingle on top of that. But good family friend, I said, I'll take the call. And once I did that, I started seeing the value, and I had to put away the fear of being different and putting myself out there. And once we created it, I knew it was the right jingle.
So what do you think about it made it so successful? Like, what is it about a jingle, especially that at the time? Like, why did it work?
I don't know, but I wish I did know what was the secret sauce to that jingle. But I have generations come to me singing that jingle. It's just, you hear it once and it doesn't leave you. It's such a common saying, won't take no for an answer. It's just such a common saying. And then singing in that long, drawn out tone, I think is part of it. And it's just easy to remember.
So then what type of impact did it make on the firm? I'm curious, just from the time that like you decided to do it, it goes up. How long did it take until you started to see an actual impact? And then what was the impact?
About 2000, I went on the radio with it and did that first before I cut a commercial with it. It was instant feedback. No, I'm not saying it's positive feedback, but instant feedback. I don't want to say crucified. My peers did not care for it, put it that way.
And I want to talk about that because, so the West Virginia legal community, I know they didn't care for the jingle. It seemed that they actually didn't care much for lawyers advertising, and especially female law firm owners, and then just in general, everything that you were doing at the time.
No, they did not. That gets launched in 2001. I stay local with it. Huge success, double-digit growth, intake. So what I wanted people, my goal and with marketing was when someone thinks Social Security or says Social Security, they think Jan Dils. That was it. That was my directive to my marketing people, which was TV and radio. So when the jingle, stayed local, and then in 2002, I said something after a hearing. I said, I might go to Charleston. And he's like, you're not going to be able to break in here. He goes, there's no way. Because Charleston judges did all their outlying areas. And I said, why not? And he's like, well, one, you're an outsider and you're a female. Okay. So, perfect.
He hadn't heard the jingle?
Yeah, he's heard the jingle. So he's like, that won't work here. And so I said, all right. And so I had to do it at that point. And I went into the Charleston market hard, wanting to own the market. And there was many competitors for what I did there and just cutting through the legal community. And so I started doing that. And shortly thereafter, I started getting written up in the newspapers there.
In what sense? Like
being negative about lawyer jingles, being named, how it's degrading the profession, that kind of thing. And I then had the state Supreme Court and the state legislature draft up a bill and push the fact that wanting to change lawyer advertising with me as the poster child.
We won't take no for an answer, Bill.
Yes.
Wow.
At first, they first tried to get me disbarred by saying that I am promising something that I could not achieve. Won't take no for an answer. It's saying that I'm guaranteeing a win, is their argument. The state ethics board said, no, that's not what she's saying. It's a term of art. And so I had to have that argument. But I spent time. It took time away from my business to do this. And I'm just opened up the Charleston office. It started getting a little stressful for sure. And then the state legislature put the bill. The state Supreme Court justice wanted to change our advertising rules in the state because of me. And I was just ended up on the front of the Charleston Gazette almost every week.
Did you ever think, okay, maybe I should dial this back, or I'm ruffling a lot of feathers?
I didn't think I should dial it back, but my parents did, my husband. I had a lot of people saying, why don't you just change the words or just say the tagline? We don't have to sing it. All that kind of thing. And I'm like, if I don't advertise, then how does anybody going to know? How am I going to be able to help people? What if there are a lot of people out there like my aunt who went and was told no. My aunt was told no. She could not receive Social Security disability. She just quit. She never appealed that decision. She didn't know any better. And there were so many people out there just like her. So I just was not going to do that.
So then what was the outcome of this bill?
The outcome of the bill was they formed a committee. I had actually obtained a lawyer to help me through this. Like, I was going to be sued. I was going to be attacked. And so I hired a lawyer that was recommended to me by the judges and the Social Security judges because they saw what was happening. And they said, see this gentleman, he's well respected in the community. I said, great. It happens to be that they had this attorney head the committee to change the advertising rules. So whether or not the advertising rules need to be changed. And so what basically wanted to do is have all the lawyer advertising be restricted, no jingles, and have to be pre-approved. And so the committee convened. He put together attorneys, non-attorneys on this committee. I ended up being on that board.
So that's convenient, right?
It was nice. I wasn't expecting it, but it was interesting.
So then after, essentially, once this thing gets shot down, do you build confidence and do you go in even, do you push in even further, or like what happens next?
Well, what it did is it got my name out there. I ended up being all over the state, and it really broke me into the Charleston market. It really increased my business, even though I think it took years off my life, but it definitely increased my business. So then I just went full steam, and I went into Beckley, Logan, Huntington, and then eventually I went into Charlotte, North Carolina.
Jan Dils proves that being different isn't just an option, it's a necessity. And if anybody knows the power of standing out, it's our next guest, Jesse Cole. The man shows up in a yellow tux and turned baseball into a full-blown entertainment experience. His approach? Put the fans first and create unforgettable moments. During our conversation, I asked Jesse to share how he turned the Savannah Bananas into a global phenomenon by doing what no one else dared.
When we first came to Savannah, we tried to fit in, and my wife and I were trying just to get anybody to come out to the games, and we were like everyone else. And you said, whatever's normal, do the exact opposite. We were doing the normal things, and we were failing. And so I've learned that if you really want to stand out, you got to go, do the exact opposite of what everyone else is doing. And so the Bananas are 100% focused on fans first and entertainment. We have, a senior citizen dance team called the Banana Nanas. We have a male cheerleading team called the Mananas. We have breakdancing coaches. We have banana babies during games. We have a banana pep band. We have a player on stilts. We play in kilts. We do dances in the middle of the game. We do TikTok trends while the game's going on. It is all about entertainment. And now the biggest risk that we've taken is developing a brand new game called Banana Ball, which has really taken off. And it's all stemmed from the two words, fans first.
Yeah, well, it seems like throughout you've always kept the fans involved, right? Whether it's crowdsourcing the name of the team or either other initiatives. In fact, I believe you even dedicated the book to the fans. I guess why that strategy, and has that ever backfired in the sense that, like, if we open this up to everybody, how do we know it's going to yield good ideas?
It's scary when you open things up to fans because, generally if you put 1,000 people together, they're going to come to the middle. And for the Bananas, a guy in a yellow tuxedo, I don't like to go to the middle. So if we made it a popularity contest, we would have been Savannah Braves. We would not have been the Bananas. So we're selective on when we take just suggestions or when we do kind of a popularity vote, which we do for t-shirts, jersey designs, things like that we know they're going to be actually buying. But no one was actually, the Savannah Bananas was our identity. So we had to be very specific with that. Before we do anything, we always ask, what would the fans think? What would the fans want? I mean, I think it was either Bezos or Howard Schultz. They said they always pictured an empty chair in the room. And we do the same thing. Do fans want to have ticket fees, convenient fees? Do fans want a $30 shirt to be $38.50 because of shipping and taxes? No. So we eliminate it, and we don't know the answer how to do it. I mean, when I tell people this, they never believe. Like, really? I never even thought about that. You buy a $20 ticket from us or $25 ticket, it's $20 or $25. And not only is it all inclusive, and we can get to that later, but we pay everyone's taxes. So we'll pay hundreds of thousands of dollars of people's taxes. And I don't know anybody. I mean, it's always just part of what you do. Here's your taxes. You get food, you pay taxes. You get drinks, you get taxes. You get tickets, you get taxes. We pay everybody's taxes for all their food, their merchandise, and their tickets. And I'm not trying to boast. I'm just saying, because I'm a fan, I want a $20 thing to be $20. I want a $5 beer to be $5. And so we put that perspective, even though we leave hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table. But that's our whole mentality. And we work for the fans, the name of our company's fans first. We have to take actions to do that. And that's why we eliminate all ads in our stadium. It's everything we do.
Instead of spending money on like traditional marketing, you go all in on creating these you wouldn't believe moments, right? Just for the fans. If you could elaborate on some of those.
Yeah, I mean, we spent a ton of money in marketing when we first started and sold a handful of tickets. I mean, newspaper, radio, we tried it all and it failed. And then we said, well, what if we just create an experience that people would walk into the ballpark and say, you wouldn't believe what they did today. You wouldn't believe. And then every night you have 4,000 people leaving, telling other people what they did last night. What's a better, powerful, more marketing way of using your dollars and using the experience? So yeah, I mean, the way we look at a script, and I believe every business should do this. I believe every business should actually script out the experience they want their customers to have. We used to have only 4 or 5 things in the pregame. We used to have our 18 half-inning promotions. We have 50 pregame promotions now. And during the game, we not only have our 18, but we have another 30 to so that happens while the game's played. And we script out an experience to be like a movie. So without going too far in depth here, Michael, but like a great movie will make you laugh. They'll make you emotional. They'll make you have all these different feelings. It's not just like a thriller the whole time, like you need to care. You need to get it down. You need to go through that. And in a baseball game, you don't often have that because you can't control that. Well, we believe that we can control the experience based on having those ooh and ah special moments, by having those loud cheering moments, by having those thrill moments. And so we started crafting that. So like a you wouldn't believe moment, every night the players come into the crowd and deliver roses to little girls and they get down on their knee. And if you have a daughter, or if you understand that feeling of seeing a daughter get a rose from a player. We had a woman come up to me and said they still saved that rose for a few years. The rose is dead and it's just like a piece, but they saved it. Those moments, we salute all the military during the game, and we actually have our players walk into the crowd and shake hands and look them in the eye and say, thank you for your service. Those moments in between all the little pie your dad promotions and the whole stadium doing hey baby and guess your spouse and grandma dance offs and all the fun, there's those special moments. And again, whatever's normal, do the exact opposite. The 7th inning stretch has been a typical thing. Take me out to the ball game, every ballpark in the world. Now, in the book, I do a 2nd inning stretch, so I have a little bit fun there, but we switched something up this Banana Ball tour. I said, can we create a moment that will give you goosebumps? And I heard the song Yellow by Coldplay. Look at the stars, look how they shine for you. I can't sing, sorry about that. And I said, what if we create a moment where everyone comes on the field, the players, and we tell every fan to lift up their phone with their flashlight. And we had the whole stadium and the players singing, look at the stars, like how they shine for you, and everything, it was all yellow. And I remember the first time I did it, and I looked at the stadium and saw thousands of lights and the whole stadium singing. And I was like, there's nowhere in the world anyone will ever experience this like this. And that's how you create a you wouldn't believe moment. You think about those moments that everyone else does, and instead of a 7-inning stretch singing take me out to the ball game, you're a part of a moment that you feel like you belong, and you're a part of something that you won't have anywhere else. And that's how we try to create our scripts.
It seems like whenever these things are happening, the players are on board. And I imagine this has gotten easier over the years, but initially when you had some of these ideas, what was it like to get the players on the team itself on board and say, here's what we're going to do in this moment?
It was tough in the beginning. I mean, we had guys, when I brought dance instructors out to teach them how to dance, players were like, I'm not doing this. And I shared that in the Find Your Yellow Tux book. But yeah, I think now that they see the power of the social media and the impact and what's happening, guys are like, oh, that'd be cool. Like, if people know me for what I do, and like, we've had that, like Bill Leroy, when we were looking at Kansas City as a place to play, we were all grabbing lunch, and 2 different families of kids came up to you, are you Bill Leroy for the Savannah Bananas? And he was like, what? Like, he never helped that before. So now you get buy-in, but I think the key to buy-in for any organization, and I know there's business leaders listening to this, and what I've learned, it's not just telling people this is how we do it. It's stories. And so no one gets a Bananas uniform or joins our staff until they go through Bananas Fans First orientation. And it's stories and videos of what players have done in the past to create fans first moments. It's stories that they can resonate with. And when I tell the story about Brian Encarnacion, the player that 2 kids came up to him and said, can I have your autograph? And he got down on knee and said, only if I can have yours. And they gave their autographs on his hat. When I share that story with the team, now you'll look around on our team and 10, 15 guys have autographs all over their hats. One guy did it all over his jersey this tour. Literally, his jersey is filled with tons of signatures. And that's how we get buy-in, is because it's the other players, what they did, and then those stories get handed down.
It's very much around creating a culture of experimentation. Sometimes these are small experiments, other times these are larger experiments. And I think in 2020, you introduced what was called like the game-changing experiment, which was introducing the world to a whole new brand of baseball, which you mentioned earlier, banana ball.
Yeah, that was crazy. Banana ball, for the people who are unfamiliar, we developed a new game in baseball, but made it a 2-hour time game. Every inning counts. So literally, if a team wins an inning, they get a point, and you can have a walk-off celebration with a Gatorade shower in the second inning. Like, it's ridiculous. Batters can't step out of the batter's box. There's no bunting. If you bunt, you're thrown out of the game. There's no mound visits. There's no walks. You can steal first, and if a fan catches a foul ball, it's an out. Like, it's a crazy game. And we developed it because we were watching our fans. Michael, I don't know about you, and I think people have a lot of different opinions on this. A lot of people believe in surveying their customers or surveying. I struggle with it. Henry Ford never surveyed his people and said, what do you want? Because the joke is they would have said faster horses. Steve Jobs was completely against surveying. No one would have said that. Same thing with Amazon. So I'm more intrigued about watching our fans and then thinking about what's a better experience. So we take pictures of our grandstand every 30 minutes. We keep track of when fans leave. Not necessarily when they come in, but when they leave. And so by watching this for many years, even with every game sold out and a wait list in the thousands, fans were still leaving games early because it was too long. And so we realized that 9 o'clock was that right time in a 2-hour game. And so we started testing it. And yes, we did an experiment in 2018 with colleges. We played a 9-inning game in 99 minutes, which was outstanding. We had a lot of failures along the way, a lot of parts of the rules that just didn't make sense and that we had to get better at. But now 98% of our fans stay till the end of the game. And so if you think about watch a Major League Baseball game and look at a crowd, well, it's different. Crowds aren't that great this time anyways. But if you look at a crowd and see at the end of the game, it's different. And so that's how we developed this game. And it was a huge experiment. But because of all the tests, we realized that's the future of the bananas. And we're going to be playing banana ball, hopefully all over the world.
Jesse Cole shows us what bold looks like on the outside. Our next guest, David Goggins, shows us what it takes on the inside. Goggins doesn't just talk about mental toughness. He's the living embodiment of it. He's mastered the art of pushing past limits, silencing doubt, and turning pain into fuel. Get ready, because Goggins is about to break down what it really takes to win the battle within.
The basic of taking souls is when the normal human being in the situation that you're in would be defeated. And the person or people with you know that in that situation, a normal human being would be defeated in that situation. And you rise above the normal human being. So it makes all the people around you feel lesser than. Therefore, you own a part of their soul. And I got it from going through Navy SEAL training. I watched all those Navy SEAL instructors who had gone through Hell Week, and now they're putting me in my class through Hell Week. I'm watching all of them because they all know at Wednesday we're all defeated. Everybody's fucked up on Wednesday. And it's Wednesday. But I got the information. I know where you were on Wednesday. And I know what you're thinking I should be at Wednesday. I should be as fucked up as you are. I'm not going to give you that. I'm going to show you what Wednesday is for me. Wednesday for me is not Wednesday for you. And so when I did that, I saw the instructors' faces when I was strong as fuck. I was at hour 80, 90 of Hell Week. I was like at minute 1. It was like Hell Week had just started. So why do you take someone's soul because they don't know how you're able to do this at that state of mind, that state of being, that kind of cold and misery, but you find more when no one else can. A smart human being will see that and you will elevate them. And that's what I did to my boat crew. My boat crew was fucked up, but they saw my elevation. So they said, fuck, if this guy can do it, what one man can do, another can do. So they elevated themselves. But as my boat crew elevated, I saw that everybody else was like, what the fuck is going on? And so we used all of that ammunition, all those sad, long faces, all of that like questioning, what the fuck? And we used it for even more ammunition. So taking souls is when you put yourself in an environment that most people won't succeed in, and you thrive in that environment.
Now, that was interesting because I think one person could see all this and see you in action and feel inspired. And then there's a whole other set of people that kind of have the opposite effect in the sense that, in the book you talk about sometimes people feel uncomfortable around you because they feel judged, which is not true. You're not judging them, but really they're judging themselves. If you could speak to that.
Yeah, so I call myself and some other people, very few people, and I'm not kissing my ass, dude. I'll tell you the truth, man. I was a fucked up person. I had a lot of problems. But I'm going to give credit where credit's due. When you work as hard as I do, and people don't want to believe it, but they know it's true. They know it's true. It's how I talk. It's how I look. It's a look in a person's eye. You know this motherfucker ain't bullshitting you. So you can think I'm lying all you want, but in the back of your mind, you fucking know this guy's the real deal. So when I get around you, I'm like a fucking lie detector. I'm not calling you out. I'm not saying a word, but the second you start to get close to me, like those metal detectors, you get that metal detector in the fucking damn, on the beach, you find that watch in the sand. That's what I am with people, man. They get around me and they know what they're not doing. They know how hard they're not trying. And I bring out the worst in them because they know that, God, man, they start to judge themselves without me even saying a word. They start to go through their own resume of life and start realizing I'm not doing enough. I haven't done enough. And what that does in turn is it makes them very angry at me or whoever is working hard. Whoever that hard-working person is that they get around, they're immediately not going to like you because they know that you're working hard for everything you have, and they just refuse to do that. So the only thing best to do is run their fucking mouths and talk shit about it. And that's usually what happens. But that's the game, man.
Well,
that's the real game changer right there, my friend.
Well, speaking of that, people always talk about they've got naysayers and critics and haters and so on. But look, you can look at any of the videos you post online. Just look at the comments. They're all there. And you talk about a strategy that you've used to actually turn this into energy, the haters mixtape. Now, this is one of those things, when I heard it in the book, I bust out laughing. I actually started to feel for Jennifer in the sense that if you play it on speakers all around the house, what is the haters mixtape?
So basically, when I was younger, things used to bother me. Hate bothers everybody. People want to say it doesn't bother them, but it does. When someone wants to get on there and talk about you in a way that's not truthful or just talk shit about you in whatever way they want to, I started realizing, so I'm always about studying the mind. But most of my studying, it comes on studying my own mind, but studying other people's minds. So for the longest time, I was like, man, why are people talking so much shit? But once I started studying the mind of the weak, you'll never hear me talking about somebody else. You'll never hear a successful person talking negatively. They may give criticism, but it's criticism to help you get better. They'll never just go on and start, oh, this motherfucker, man, because we ain't got time for that shit. I ain't got time to go on your Instagram or your Twitter or your Facebook or your blog or anything and run my mouth about you. First of all, it shows I'm not a man. Second of all, it shows I'm just a bitch. So I started studying these motherfucking weak people these trolls, these shit talkers, these haters. I'm like, man, you're exactly where I was years ago. So the more I studied it, the more I realized, man, the problem's not me. And this isn't the after school special, man. I'm not here to make you feel better. It's just the truth. You'll never meet a hater doing better than you, my friend. Ever in your life. And I say it all the time. And that is the truth. So what I do is I take all of that shit and I get all the hate and I get my phone and I talk into it. What everybody said about me, I'll talk into it. So then I started having fun with it. I started putting beats to it, different tracks to it, Eminem soundtracks, whatever. Started putting it on a loop. And next, before I know it, man, I'm like, damn, this shit's kind of fucking badass. Who the fuck gets their haters' content that are talking about yourself? And I listen to it. And before I know it, it becomes the ultimate fuel. Even though I'm not listening to their shit that way, it just gives me a spark on those days when I'm like, you know what? I want these motherfuckers to hate me even more. Because the haters follow you like a motherfucker. They know more about you than your mama knows about you. They get all your books. They get all your podcasts. They get all your social media. They know where you live. They know where you sleep. They know everything about you. Me knowing that, I'm going to let you know about this too, my friend. I'm going to give you some more fuel to hate on me, man, for you to not like yourself even more. So that's where all that comes from.
Goggins teaches us how to turn pain into power, but success isn't just about grit. It's also about strategy. And no one knows strategy like Chris Voss, former FBI hostage negotiator and best-selling author of Never Split the Difference. Let's dive into his game-changing tactics that will transform how you communicate, whether it's in the courtroom, the boardroom, or even your living room.
The secret to gaining the upper hand in a negotiation is giving the other side the illusion of control. First of all, to get your counterpart comfortable, you got to give them the illusion of control. That's principally going to come through how and what questions. How and what questions are very deferential. It's not that you got an answer, it's the effect you had when you asked. So the effect you want to have when you ask is like, how does everybody on your side feel about this? You know, how do the people that have to implement this, how do they see this? Now your counterpart's going to be, they're fine, everything's good. But the point was you asked a question which plants a seed in their mind. And then they're going to think twice about it. You need to ask those questions a couple of times. Enough so that this person starts to think to themselves, well, maybe I better double check. Because they think it's their idea. There's a little inception going on here. Remember that Leonardo DiCaprio movie? You try to plant a seed. You're trying to plant a seed in their mind that the rest of their team is important. They have no idea that that's what you're doing. You're doing it deferentially, innocuously. As soon as they start going back to the people on their team, those people start to get looped in. You now begin to deal with your implementation issues. You're less likely to get single-threaded.
So when you talk about this, you talk like a mindset of discovery when you go into negotiations. What do you mean by that? Is it really just trying to understand how a decision's made? Who's involved? Just try to gain clarity on the situation.
Well, a couple of different things. First of all, the mindset of discovery is actually it's a hack for you because it's basically a positive frame of mind and it's curious, and you can actually take in more information. You see things faster when you're in that mindset. You pull in more data. Your pattern recognition increases. All the things that go to higher mental performance. So first of all, if you have a mindset of discovery, you're going to be smarter. You could easily argue probably at least 31% smarter, which is enough of an edge that if you're interested in edges, you're going to want it. Then the other thing, too, is by definition, it's an asymmetric world. It's an imperfect world. We know we don't have all the information, yet we act like we do. So there's never a negotiation where you're not holding stuff, holding stuff to the vest. There's never a time when you don't have cards that you're holding back. Well, if you're not doing that, then that means they get the same dynamic. So we intellectually know there's stuff that we don't know. Now, the crazy thing to really bend your mind around is what happens in the overlap. Because not only, since I don't know what they don't know, the Donald Rumsfeld line, the unknown unknowns, but what's really sweet is when you hit the overlap, and between the two of you, you discover stuff that if you're holding it back, it's important, which means you're going to get an exponential effect if you can uncover it.
Are there people that can't be negotiated or reasoned with?
It's not that they can't be reasoned with. It's a little bit of what journey are they on to begin with? How scared are they? What's really the goal? Like in kidnapping negotiations, we had to recognize early on whether or not the goal was to actually kill the hostage. The other side's on a killing journey. And so they want you to be part of that. The best you could do is get out of the journey. If the best thing you could do is to disrupt, then you simply withdraw.
So that's something like asocial violence, essentially.
Right.
So somebody walks into a movie theater, starts shooting up everyone. That's not a person interested in having a negotiation.
Right. Or they're orchestrating a different outcome. So in a business world, you don't really get that, but what you get is you get people that are so scared of the environment. And this is happening in the healthcare space a lot these days. They're so scared of making any deal, they'll come to the table and all they do is call names. All they are is insulting. There's overwhelmingly fear-driven. Now, you can get people out of that, but you got to recognize that that's what's driving them. And then you got to find a way to really gently help them see that what they're doing is actually counterproductive to where they say they're trying to go.
When do you know when a negotiation is a lost cause? Like, how do you know when to walk away?
There's an old saying, it's not a sin to not get the deal. It's a sin to take a long time to not get the deal. So how do you know if you're the fool in the game? Actually, you just kind of ask. What kind of questions do you ask? You know, how have you done this in the past? How do you make decisions? You know, what does your perfect partner look like? You know, these are how and what questions. They're innocuous. You try to tease out the other side's vision from them. They might be using you just as a competing bid. They might simply be trying to get free consulting from you. Those two things are real common. In point of fact, it probably happens at least 20% of the time that the other side is never going to do business with you. They're doing due diligence, which means you're a competing bid, or they're looking for free consulting. So your questions are, if you proceed forward, what would that look like? With deference, they're going to actually start to answer the question for you. You'll find in a way that doesn't include you. Well, if we were going to move forward, we were going to find a firm, blah, blah, blah. They start laying it out. Now, they'll probably catch themselves about halfway through the explanation and suddenly realize they're describing an outcome that doesn't include you. And then they'll suddenly course correct, which is a great indicator that they caught themselves lying to you and I've had that happen to me a bunch of times. So the idea, though, is how do you tease out early on in a very polite way whether or not their vision of moving forward includes you?
And what about on the other side of that? Like, what if there are people that, let's say, they would like to make a deal, or they would like to at least work with you, but their vision and their world of working with you does not align with yours, meaning that they want to work with you at either half the price or half, essentially it's something that would not make sense, but yet the conversation is still ongoing.
Right. Well, for us, we're also looking for that also early. We're going to pull out early, pull out politely, which leaves the door open. We live by something we call the Oprah rule. The last impression is the lasting impression. I'm going to disengage from that conversation very early. I'm going to disengage politely. Now, you might not let me out of the conversation politely. If you let me out of the conversation politely, then that's a great indicator that we're probably going to see each other again in the future. That you're going to think about it, you're going to come around, you're going to be impressed that I was polite about it, and that will resonate with you, and you're going to want to come back. Now, if you won't let me out of it politely, that's actually a predatory move, which indicated that you were always planning on taking advantage of me. Someone that we coached in a negotiation recently, she refused to be the fool in the game. She assessed them as wanting to get free consulting from her. And she simply failed to comply and said, no, I don't think I can help you. I'd love to dedicate myself to you anytime in the future. If I can, do everything I can to make you successful, but I just don't think we're ready to work together right now. So she exited politely. They sent her a follow-up email saying, we would have gone with you, but you didn't share any information with us. And consequently, we chose somebody that did share information with us. Now, that's a punishing email, right? And she was really concerned. She had second thoughts like, did I do the wrong thing? Did I miss an opportunity here? Because they said that's why they didn't hire me. And I said, was that a nice email as a follow-up? They go, no. I said, that's a punishing email. That's a predator's move. The predator always intended to victimize you, and when a predator can't victimize you, they'll get mad at you because you didn't play your role, which is another indication that they were trying to take advantage of you all along, and you made the right decision. So if I try to extricate from you politely and you won't allow me to extricate politely, that just tells me I'm on the right track and I need to get out of this conversation.
Yeah, that sometimes we've seen, walking away is even a negotiation tactic. Now, if you have to do that in order for somebody to ultimately say, wait, we want to work with you, is there a relationship there? If that has to take place, if it has to get to the point where one party walks away in order for a deal to get done.
No, I don't do that as a tactic. To me, that's a risk. We believe in being honest. So to pretend I'm walking away when I'm not would would be to be disingenuous, which now and if I come back, then I'm telling you that I'm disingenuous, that it was a tactic and I'm not sincere. If I walk away, I've got at least 2 or 3 things that back up my assessment that you're the wrong deal for me. And when I walk away, that's it. Hey, I'm ghosting you at that point in time. You can follow up with me all you want. I'm not going to respond.
And as this episode comes to a close, I want to thank you for 5 years and 350 episodes of the Game Changing Attorney podcast. You've helped us become the most listened to podcast in legal with over 1 million listeners all across the world. So I've never been more excited for what we've got coming up on the podcast. So thank you, yes, you, the listener, the viewer, if you're watching this, and I will say the best is yet to come. If you found this episode valuable, here are 3 free ways that I can help you grow your law firm. Number 1, download the first chapter of my book absolutely free at GameChangingAttorney.com. Number 2, you can shoot me a text at 404-531-7691 and I'll answer any question that you've got for me. And finally, number 3, if you can leave this podcast a 5-star review, it'll help us gain access to more influential thought leaders and bring their lessons learned here to you. For more information on this episode, see the show notes in your podcast app or visit legalpodcast.com.